Welcome, everyone, to our series ISO 20022, Don't Get Left Behind. I'm Krista Soni, Marketing Director for SEEBURGER, and today's episode 2, A Smooth Transition, Practical Tips and Strategies for Banks. We thank you so much for joining. Please put your questions in the comments area throughout the event. And now I'll introduce our speakers for today, starting with Isak Ventila. With a wealth of experience spanning multiple continents and a deep understanding of global payments modernization initiatives, Isak is a leader in the ISO 20022 community. Today, he leads the consulting practice at Movits Payments. And we have Ulf Persson. As SVP Strategic Product Management and Analyst Relations at SEEBURGER, Ulf is responsible for strategic product management, product marketing, global marketing relations, and leadership with regards to SEEBURGER integration technology, platform, and integration services. Ulf works across multiple industry verticals with a focus on financial services and payments and ISO 20022. With that, I'll hand it off to you, Ulf.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome back, Isak. Great to have you on this event again. Today is the second one. Last time we focused around challenges, opportunities, and others around payments modernization, both for banks, both for corporates. Today we're going to dive into more around banks and what banks have not done around ISO 20022, and you know what we see and the advice we can give to the community out there. You know, we there's been a lot of, you know, Celent, who is one of the financial services advisor research company out there. We worked with them during the year. They did a survey, and there is about 44% of global banks that probably will not be ready in time for the deadline in 2025. We also feel, and we can see that maybe only 56% of the banks in US will be ready. I've seen, and maybe you've seen this as well, that some of the tier one banks have started to send during the milestone that was set to March earlier this year to be ready around cross-border payments transactions and reporting around that. But the receiving part is not really there. So is that what you see as well when you're out and about, so to say, or what's your experience here?
Yeah, I've certainly seen that trend. We're not really seeing the numbers that we're kind of hoping for sure. We're now a couple of months in. We're almost a year in since Swift did the migration, and many EMIs were also doing the migration in March 23. And I think we're all kind of we're hoping that to see a bigger number. But I think it all stems from the fact that a lot of banks are ready to send and maybe even ready to receive, but they haven't really taken that next step of focusing on what are we going to do with ISO 20022? What's the customer offering that we're going to do? And do we have the corporates doing anything, initiating anything in ISO 20022? Because you might be ready to send, but if no one is able to initiate a ISO 20022 rich payment, then there's nothing really happening. So,
yeah, I guess it's a value, and you know, how can you show the business value not only to the stakeholders within the bank, but also to your customers, your business partners, and the collaboration there to help educate. I think we mentioned that last time a few times. Education and the ability to focus on a specific use case is typically the best, and then, you know, have an agile process around that. Does that make sense? Is that what you see as well? Focus is obviously always good, but yeah.
I think we've seen too many banks kind of looking at this as a technical program, and many of them have been forced to do so because they've had limited budget and limited time. So really just keeping the lights on has been the focus. I think we're now seeing more banks kind of shifting towards value-added services and seeing what they can do with the new language. You know, I talked to a bank a couple of months ago where the executives were surprised that they didn't get any benefits of ISO 20022, but they also just gave the budget for the bare minimum to make sure that they survive in March 2023. So I think more and more banks are now waking up to understand that we're not done. We need to do more, and we need to focus on the customer offering.
I mean, that's from the I mentioned the survey and the work that we did together with Celent earlier. I think one of the findings in there was the same, where actually the executives were not hesitant, but of course they see the overall big picture. But then when you start to talk to the operations folks, payments, the person who's responsible around payments itself, that's where they see the value, and maybe there's still a gap. I think it is a gap between stakeholders, and maybe still too many silo initiatives in the bank, so to say, firefighting or whatever it may be, depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, I see this especially with the big banks. There's still a lot of silos at the big banks. They're still doing many programs that are very similar in nature. We're cross-border. We have high-value payments. We have real-time payments, all migrating or adopting ISO 20022, and there's a lot of different teams not aware of the other ones, and basically doing the same work. I do see a little bit of an easier journey for the small banks, because they often rely on external parties, be that vendors or consultants. So it's a little bit easier to break that the silo environment. But we do it's quite frustrating to see, but it's continues to pop up, the fact that we're still not really ready to see the big picture from a bank point of view.
How about the specific use cases? So one of the use case I see, and we've been involved in this as well, as an initiative, is obviously to detect and to avoid or to protect around financial crime and fraud, and I think that's a very good example of utilizing the ISO 20022 standard, so to say. You have more data, you have the metadata around the payments available that you can use to prevent and be more proactive with regards to application integration and so on and so forth, as part of the overall payment process. I see that as a large enterprise bank initiative, maybe more, probably for the small as well. But is that something you've seen, or are there other use cases that may be a good starting point, you think, or yeah?
So it is a really good use case. I just want to stress, because I think there's a couple of banks that listens to this. The data is just not just magically going to appear. You need somewhere to somehow to get the data somewhere to use it. But I do think that what I'm seeing is this kind of combination of multiple payments modernization efforts. So fraud is a really good example. ISO 20022 by itself, if we look at that as a new language or new standard, it's you can come up with a handful of use cases for that, but if you combine it with ISO plus real-time payments or ISO plus pre-validation, it becomes pretty strong. So I think in the next couple of years, we're going to continue seeing new products that has ISO 20022 as a foundation. We see Swift doing a couple of things, new innovative products that banks are starting to leverage. So I think that's the exciting thing in the next couple of years, to see the new products evolve.
I mean, you're right, and these more of a. You also have some of the regional initiatives in North America, for example. You have the Fedwire adoption, even if it may take a little bit longer time than hopefully planned for. In Europe, obviously Europe has been on this for some time due to SEPA, but you also see other ones. PSD3 is now being mentioned, and another type of regulative initiatives. Asia is maybe a little bit different, but obviously they look at what Europe and US are doing, and maybe the foundation there is, and the legacy is maybe different, so to say, from Europe and the Americas, so specifically North America. Is that that also should have an impact, obviously, on usage and hopefully boost the readiness factor some moving into 2024, or what do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a very different landscape in Europe compared to North America. It's the changes we see here in Europe is they're quite significant because of like PSD3 and all that's gonna entail. I think the US is an interesting journey as well. US and Canada. We saw FedNow being launched a couple of months ago. How that's going to evolve. That the FedNow application is a really strong and robust application, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the banks are kind of adopting and using that to its fullest extent. We also have other central banks in the world and here in the Nordics, for example, that have implemented real-time payments, and it's going to be interesting to see how that's being used. And they're all kind of underpinned with ISO 20022, obviously. So it's going to be a fun couple of years ahead. I think if we look at the cross-border migration, we do, it's obviously just 2 years away from the end, November 2025. SWIFT is very firm that that's going to be the end, even though, as you mentioned, a couple of like 44%, if I'm not mistaken, might not be ready, 44% of the banks. But one thing that's going to trigger this and going to kind of push us along is the fact that many MIs, market infrastructures, with their high-value payment systems or GTSs, they are going to migrate, and many of them are doing it in a big bang approach. So we're going to see a couple of big implementations in the US in 24 and 25. And we also have some MIs that are doing a coexistence that will close their legacy side of the business. So I think that's going to drive a lot of adoption. I think we're seeing a little bit of a hockey stick right now. I'm really hoping we do. There's not a lot of high percentage right now, but I think we're going to see a really fast growth in the last little bit.
And I agree with you. And of course, as part of that, it's again to work with your customers, your business partners, being the bank, collaborate, educate, and vice versa, and which is obviously the next session we have planned in this live series events around ISO. How do you work with your corporates, and maybe you can just elaborate a little bit around that. And then give some hints on what the bank should do. Again, given what you have seen and the experience you have.
Yeah, so I mean, it's challenging for banks because they have their backlog is bigger than ever. It was always big to at a bank, but I think with the latest things that has happened in the last couple of years with payments modernization, I think there are so many initiatives that you want to do and so many new products that you want to launch. I think the key thing, for banks is to bring the customers along. Understanding you can't bring everyone along, but I think just make sure you have good dialogue with your customers, your key customers, to make sure that you're prioritizing your backlog in the right way, and also bring them along into your own roadmap. I think that's the one thing that we see right now is that the corporates, there's a big kind of split between the banks and the corporates in terms of what ISO 20022, the next couple of years of ISO 20022 is going to bring. So I think it's important for banks to really be transparent with their corporates and show them the roadmap and the things that they are thinking of adopting, so that the banks can also look at it kind of holistically, not just looking at ISO in isolation, but really looking at payments modernization. What can that mean for me as a corporate? And ISO is just one part of that.
Excellent, and that's great. I think by that we will end today's session. That is a good bridge into the next one. Chris, thank you very much. Isak, Chris, over to you.
Thank you both so much. That was some really great insight on what's happening now and what's to come. So for everyone to know, we are doing another episode of this series for corporates. Prepare your business for ISO 20022 practical tips and strategies. So everyone, please join us. That's going to be a week. Also, please check out our website. We have lots of information, including the report on the survey that we did with Celent in there. So please come to our website, and you'll see the location on your screen. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Isak and Ulf.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Isak. Bye.
Bye.